Hey, it's Sandy with the Common Ground Alaska podcast. And today I have the honor of being with Margaret Loew from Holy Living. And Margaret and I go way back. I bought my first Bosch from her, and I just recently bought another one because, well, mine had a catastrophic accident. And so these things happen. But Margaret is kind of our resident pro when it comes to cooking with whole grain, just using whole grains altogether. And so, Margaret, we're really glad to have you.
Thank you. The honor is mine to be on your program and to be a partner with Common Grounds. I think that is just such a good deal. I'm so excited.
Yeah, well, we're having a good time with all the stuff we got going on, that's for sure.
Yes.
So Margaret, I remember when I first came to you, and you probably don't remember this, but I'm sure you've had many similar conversations. All right. So
Okay.
I remember when I first came to you, and I had just so many questions. And what really what made me want to cook with whole grains and to mill my own flour, and a friend of mine let me borrow her mill, so we were kind of sharing her mill back and forth. And because just buying the Bosch was a really big deal for me at the
Oh,
time. And
yeah.
but I remember coming to you and just being like, why would I do this? And how can you possibly? And my life was chaotic. We had, we had kids in 4-H with 4-H animals everywhere, and there was just a lot going on. And I remember you simplified everything so much, and you just kind of brought it down to basic nutrition. And I don't remember exactly what you said. I'm sure you were much more eloquent than I am going to be, but you said something to the effect of, listen, when you start with something that's the way that it was created to be, and then you make food from that, then you're making a wholesome, good food.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that to me was just so simple. And then it was just kind of like, oh, well, then of course that's what we do. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't. And then we got complicated. We talked about soaking grains, which actually didn't turn out to be complicated either. And but anyway, so I kind of want to dig into that a little bit. Why do you cook with whole grains, and when did you start doing this?
Okay. Well, I cook with whole grains. I started way back, oh boy, 30 plus years ago, I guess. Well, yes. Probably around 1990, maybe 88, something like that. Because I had a neighbor that explained to me the benefits of whole grains. And I don't know, God just always put it in my heart that to eat real food, you know, um, the less processed food in our diet, the better. We are a very sick society today, and we're so much sicker than we were 30 years ago because we go to Costco and what box do we eat tonight? Instead of shopping the perimeter of the store, I go produce. I get very little meat from the grocery store. And dairy, do get dairy, produce, dairy, and to be true confession, a couple of kind of crackers, but that's about it. Um, if you can make your food with real food, first of all, it's very economical. Um, and second of all, it's so much more nutritious. And third of all, you're avoiding all of the chemicals and the manufacturing that happens to our food today. Our kids are eating boxes of cereal. I'm ugh, that is just so full of garbage. I mean, look at the ingredient list. If you've got hydrogenated oils, refined flour, enriched flour, quote unquote. Um, let's see.
How about food dyes and 12 different kinds of
Oh,
sugar?
oh, thank you. Yes. So my basic spiel is change your flour to whole grain flour. And now it's sprouted grain flour, and change your sugar to a healthier kind of sweetener. And I have several in my granary. And change your salt so that your salt has color. And that means that it has micronutrients. Salt is not a bad guy. We need salt. Jesus told us that we are salt and light. So we need salt. And change your oils to be healthy oils. You want oils that are if you want expensive oils, put money into oils and put money into grain. Grain is cheap, oils are expensive. And if you will change those things and then add nutrient dense foods, like seeds and nuts to your baked goods, you will be healthy. You think of all the foods that you eat that are made from flour, you know, from pizza crust, well, bread, obviously, biscuits, cakes, cookies, muffins, pancakes, all of that. If you will change from the white, dead, corrupt flour from the store to whole grain flour, especially sprouted whole grain flour, you will be miles ahead in your culinary, in your nutrition, and you will just feel good, feel strong, feel healthy, and you'll eat cheap. You know, one bag of Prairie Gold costs $55. A loaf of my bread, you know, a regular standard loaf of bread, is maybe $1.50, probably closer to $1.25 for a whole loaf. And when I use my Bosch mixer over here, right there, that makes enough dough for 5 loaves of bread. And I'm done start to finish in less than 2 hours. I mean, here's a picture of one batch of bread dough from a Bosch. I mean, and you could, instead of doing little loaves of bread, you could do a couple of pizzas. You could do hamburger buns, hot dog buns, you know, all those things from one batch of bread.
Yeah,
So,
and hold that picture back up because I want to give a really strong visual for this. So you've got this picture of this bread. You said that's about enough for 5 batches. And what
five
you said
loaves, yeah.
was, yeah, in that what the cost of that altogether was under $10.
Well,
If it's
I would say, you know, I haven't done the math, but I would say maybe between $10 and $15 for all of that food. You know,
right,
go to
right,
Costco and try to get that, or any
right.
store. You know, your loaves of, I don't know. I don't take time to price out things, but probably $40 or $50 at least from that. And it
Yeah.
took me 2 hours of my time. And in it, you know, that includes the cleanup. And that includes the rising in the oven for 20 minutes and the sponging for 20 minutes. Anyway, it's sporadic, but if you have a 2 hour window, you can make that. I can teach you how to do that. It's
Yeah.
very simple.
Well, and I think that's a major important part of this is you know, we can all watch YouTube videos and oh my word, I'm so grateful for YouTube because we can learn so much, right? But
Yes.
there's so much more that you can learn by in person.
Yeah,
So not only do you educate about this, but you also are willing to teach about it. So
I
let's
do.
talk for a second about classes that you have or
Yeah. Yes, once a month I do a bread making class and usually something else along with bread making. I try to limit myself to 2 classes a month. And and they're held right here in my kitchen so that you can watch me do what I do in my kitchen, and you can visualize that in your kitchen, and then you can go out to my granary and shop, and then you understand how to shop in my store. My store is a very unique store. You don't normally walk into a grocery store and see 50-pound bags of wheat. Um, and there's a whole lot of other grains that you've probably never heard of, like teff and, well, everybody's heard of quinoa, but amaranth and teff and kamut and einkorn and emmer. I mean, we've got lots of different things. Plus we have very healthy oils. I've got coconut oil, olive oil, just started carrying avocado oil and palm fruit shortening. You don't have to buy Crisco. Oh, you can buy palm fruit shortening and it'll make fabulous baked goods. So anyway, we have lots of healthy oil. Oh, and my olive oil. It's extra virgin and it is organic, but it doesn't have that thing, that flavor that makes everything taste like extra virgin olive oil that I do not
yeah.
prefer.
Yeah, I don't think any of us really prefers that. So
Yes.
so that's really good. So you not only do you cook with these grains, but you also teach about them and then you have your granary. And I've been to your granary multiple times. And I
Mhm.
just love going in there. It's really fun. It's like a super, super healthy Costco. I have to mention, you also carry chocolate chips. This
Yeah,
isn't just, I mean, you carry fun stuff too. So
I do. I have healthy candies, you know, a
yeah,
much better grade of candy with M&Ms that have real food for the coloring, not chemical dyes. So
yep,
yeah, and my
yep.
coconut chocolate chews, those are a favorite. They're little cubes of coconut with organic dark chocolate all around it, and they're not sickening sweet like a Mounds candy bar. So anyway,
Yeah, it's there's so many options that are fun. So, but let's talk for a minute. I want to make sure that we get to talk about your sale because you have a sale coming up, right?
I do. Twice a year, I call it my co-op orders. In the fall and in the spring, I publish a newsletter and a price list, and even a 6 month supply list, so that you can stock up for 6 months with all the everything that you need for baking and cooking. I've got lots of beans, I've got broth mixes, I've got a lot of seasoning mixes, and seeds and nuts, dried fruits. Um, Kitchen tools, and of course, all the equipment, the Bosch, the mill, the dehydrator, all those things. But twice a year, in the right about this time, the middle of September, and then again in the middle of March, I will email to everybody on my email list, my newsletter and my price list. And I give you about 3 weeks to get it back to me, get an order back to me. And I have an Excel sheet on my website that's very easy to use. And then I also have a PDF form that you can fill out and mail to me. And when you do that and get it to me, I think it'll be due October 2nd this year. Get it to me in that time frame, then you'll save 10% on the consumables if you pay with cash or check, 7% if you prefer credit card. Now, that is for my customers that live in our area, like Girdwood to Willow, on the road system there. I do have grain depots in outlying areas, Delta Junction, Kenny Lake, let's see, Fairbanks, the Kenai Peninsula, Seward, McGrath of all places, and Bethel. Anyway, I've got a lot of people in the area that also you can place your co-op order with them, and then they will consolidate all of the orders and send it to me. And then, but those outlying areas away from South Central doesn't not offer that discounted price because there's extra money involved there, obviously, to transport the product to the outlying areas. So anyway, and then the products will be here the first week or so of November, and then you can come pick them up or wait for an email from your distributor. Yeah, I've got one in Eagle River, well, Chugiak area, Anchorage, and Wasilla. So we cover a lot of bases around here.
Yeah, I would say so. And how does a person join your email list?
Just email me. My website is holyliving.com, WHOLY, spelled a little bit differently, living.com. And there's a contact me link there, and just send that to me and say, yeah, join the email list. So then you'll get notices on equipment sales, classes. I'm very politically incorrect, and I quite often include all that, and I try to put a spiritual thought in there. So just be warned, if you join me, then that's what you get. And so there we go.
I think that's perfect. So, Margaret, now that we've gotten all that out of the way, I want to have some fun. So, I want to talk about making for someone who's never made bread before. First of all, I just want to I want to take a little side trip here and just say
Okay.
you don't have to make bread. Like you don't have to start with bread just because you're starting to mill your own stuff. So it's the same advice that I give people when they ask, I want to start homesteading. I want to grow all my own food. And I'm like, how about we start with tomatoes? Let's just have a really good tomato crop this year. And then next year we'll add cucumbers and beets or whatever. Let's start small and
Sure.
yep. And it's got to be the same thing with whole grains. It would be really easy to just come to your granary and shop and load up the back of your Suburban with all these bags of food and a Bosch and a mill and be on your merry way. But a person doesn't want to get overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
if you've never ever done this before, what would you start with if you've
Okay.
never made anything before?
Well, I would say use your own recipes that you love. But like I said a few minutes ago, change your flour, change your fat, change your sweetener, change your salt, and add nutrient dense things like pancakes, muffins, cakes, cookies. You could just swap your flour over and make it with healthy things. And I have suggestions for the grains to use for those things. Um, but with cookies in particular, you want to add a little extra flour to it. Do a test cookie because a cup of whole grain flour, fresh from your mill, is light and fluffy and smells delicious. A cup of flour from a bag of white flour is heavy and dense. And so that's what most of your cookie recipes are based from. So you're going to have to add a little extra of the whole grain flour, which you're adding extra nutrients. So there's nothing wrong with that. Um, and then you can bake with it. So yeah, just start with some basic things. I can teach you how to roll your own oats. And then I roll a 7-grain mix so that you can have your own hot cereal that is just nothing like it. Nothing like Quaker oats out of a can. So
You've
yeah,
mentioned healthy sugars, but what exactly is a healthier sugar?
sweetener,
What would a
okay.
person be looking for?
Well, I have evaporated cane juice sugar. It's a little coarser than your typical white refined sugar, but it is much less refined. And so it doesn't mess with your blood sugar, give you that high and the low. And it's concentrated. So you, instead of using a whole cup, use 2/3 of a cup or maybe a little less. And I take that evaporated cane juice sugar and I add molasses to it and I make my own brown sugar. So I have the best. Come to the granary and say, can I taste your brown sugar? Because you'll never want to buy store-bought sugar again. It's just amazing and it never gets hard or lumpy or anything. And then I take that same sugar and I put it in my blender 1 cup at a time and I make powdered sugar. So you've got a much healthier sugar. So a 25-pound bag is really more like 40 pounds worth of sugar. Okay, so that is my sugar. I have 2 kinds of honey. I have raw clover honey, and I also have orange blossom honey. They're both raw. They're both delicious. I have them in small sizes in gallon jugs. I have xylitol. Don't ask me how to use that because I don't know how. I haven't used it. Um, and I have agave syrup, which I really enjoy agave syrup. Um, it is great. You can use that as a replacement in your recipes. And I add maple extract to that agave syrup and use it for a pancake syrup. And so you're avoiding the high fructose corn syrup junk there, but you're not paying for an expensive maple syrup. So those are my primary sweeteners. And that's, of course, you can always use dates and, fruits, that kind of thing for a sweetener. So does that answer that
That's,
question?
yes, it does. That sounds
Goodness.
wonderful. All
It
of those
is. They're all
really
amazing.
good.
Yeah, I give out samples in my store of my cookies and baked goods, and people go, "Oh, can I have that recipe?" Sure, but you're probably not going to get the same results unless you use my kind of ingredients, but that's okay. You're on a better path.
Yep, absolutely. And we all have to start somewhere. So, even if you're not if you're not baking anything at all,
Yes,
then just start doing just one thing. Just make a batch of muffins. Start
yes,
there and just see. And sometimes the thing is sometimes you have to tweak things a little bit. So it's okay if maybe your family doesn't prefer a certain muffin or they don't quite like the texture of something. Just keep working at it because
mm,
I most everything that we make is homemade and
mm.
I still make stuff people don't prefer. So that's
No,
okay.
absolutely. Another thing you can do is you could buy some oat groats, and that's just another name for oats that have not been rolled. And I was at a demo at the fair. I have a friend that did a breakfast demo at the fair last Saturday. And she took oat groats, I think about a half of a cup, and she put them in a thermos with boiling water. And she left them overnight and came back the next day. And they were amazing. They looked like they had been cooked like regular rolled oats, but yet now you're getting the whole grain there instead of something that's been processed. So
Yeah.
anyway, you can't. And there's little grains like millet and teff and amaranth, and that you could again soak overnight or cook a small batch of and use that for a hot cereal. But it's just delicious. Or use that instead of rice. You know, use that as a great substitute. So nutrient dense and delicious. So
Yeah, yeah, it's just a matter of learning what they are and how to use them.
yeah.
So I feel like I'm going a little bit backwards again, but Margaret, you and I spoke a while back, and I probably didn't warn you of this. So if you don't have it readily available, that's fine. But you had these vials that explained
Oh
what
yeah.
comes out of grain. Do you have that available? Can you explain that?
All right. So this is a demo of what the commercial millers take out of our flour to keep it fresh from being spoiled and tasting bad. I know the very first time that I bought a bag of whole wheat flour thinking I was going to make something amazingly delicious for my family, I was very disappointed. So, because you don't know if that was milled a week ago, a month ago, or a year ago. And so the nutrition in that whole grain flour, if it truly was nutritious, has spoiled, evaporated. Just like you wouldn't take an apple and peel it and put it in your cabinet and go back 6 months later to eat it. You wouldn't even think about doing that. But that's what we do with our whole grains, and we don't even think about it. So here is whole wheat, and there's over 40 nutrients locked in as long as it's in the whole form. And those nutrients act like a symphony orchestra to feed and nourish our body and to um, meet all of our needs, health-wise, our nutritional needs. And they stay that way for a very long time, way past your lifetime. Grains are the most nutrient dense, the best food to store that God created. And he just did that for us because he loves us. And he knew that we needed something simple that would be nutrient dense to feed us. And the commercial millers know that once that seed coat is broken and it's milled into flour, that flour will turn rancid. It will spoil over time. It'll oxidize. The nutrients will evaporate or spoil. And so they remove all of this and they leave you with white powder. And this kind of started back in the early 1900s. And after a certain period of time, after General Mills started shipping flour coast to coast, they figured out that people were really getting sick and actually kind of going crazy. And through research, they figured out that it was actually because they had removed so much of the nutrition from the flour. So lawfully, they have to add some chemical nutrients into the white flour to enrich it. And you think, oh, enrich means this is better. Well, in this case, it's not. It's chemical nutrients. And they bleach it. Give us this day our daily bleach. And they call that food, but it isn't food. So what they have removed first is the bran, because that's brown. And I don't think you can really see this very well, but this is the bran. And the bran is what our bodies need to make our food go through as quickly. We are a very constipated society because we have removed the fiber from our diets, but the fiber is what we need to make our food go through as quickly and carry out toxins. That's what that fiber does, is it's like a sponge that grabs toxins and carries it out quickly. And it also acts like the scrubby side of a sponge to scrub the inside of our pipes to keep them clean. What happens if you never clean your sink or your toilet? It just collects and collects and collects, and it's gross. So that's what happens on the inside of our pipes when you don't eat a lot of fiber. Number one, you're constipated, so you have a very difficult time there. And all the good nutrients that you are eating cannot go through those pipes to feed and nourish your body because they're all coated with the hydrogenated oils in the white flour, white sugar, white salt. And all the bad stuff that's trying to go through to be eliminated is stopped as well. So you're just recycling trash in your system. And I think that's why we have such a sick society today, is because people just are not eating real food that gives them real fiber and makes them not constipated. You know, your health really is in your colon. If you have a smooth working colon, regular working colon, like daily at least, um, you're not going to be very healthy. And I won't get too much more into that, but everybody knows what I'm talking about. So that's the brand. And you can also get your fiber through beans and fruits and seeds and nuts. All those good nutrient dense foods are just amazing, and they keep your pipes clean. So eat lots of fiber. And then this is the middlings part of the grain, and that's what um, helps the plant grow, nourishes the plant. And the wheat germ oil, excuse me. This is the nutrient dense part. And when you buy wheat germ in the store, if it isn't roasted and it's raw, it's in the refrigerated section to protect those nutrients. So anyway, that's where all your nutrition is right there. So there we go. All of that is removed. They leave you with white powder, the starch, and they chemicalize it and bleach it for you, call it enriched, and feed it to you. And so
Yeah.
I liken that to paying for a symphony orchestra ticket, which usually costs quite a bit of money. And you go hear the symphony and you're all excited to hear the symphony. And here's a flute, a violin, a trumpet, a trombone. And you look up on the stage and there's a whole lot of empty chairs. And it doesn't sound much like a symphony. And you go, where's my symphony? Well, this is your symphony right here. You mill it yourself fresh when you need it, and you use it. And if you have some left over, you put it in a bag in your freezer, and then you preserve those nutrients. But this is really cheap. I mean, we've already talked about the economy of a loaf of bread being a little over $1. So anyway, when you compare the cost of just your flour alone, it's amazing right there. And let alone the cost of all these convenience foods that are so nutrient void, and they fill your belly. This will nourish your belly. And when you eat whole grain bread or whole grain anything, you can't eat a lot of it because your brain is nourished and you go, oh, I'm full. I don't need to eat anymore. I'm good. So you really save that way. You save on doctor bills. I totally recommend a podcast called Sue's Healthy Minutes. Sue Becker has a business like mine, but on steroids. I'm sure they do multi-million dollars worth of business every year in Georgia. And she has a podcast called Sue's Healthy Minutes. And if you will listen to that, you will hear all kinds of amazing stories of people that all they've done is changed eating bread, eating real bread. That bread, it's the bread story. You'll hear lots of it's the bread stories on there. And I don't know that we'll all have that it's the bread story, but I have a number of them, and especially the folks that have taken the time to soak and dehydrate their grains. A lot of people think they need to be gluten-free because their body itches, it bloats, it feels bad when they eat whole grains or gluten. And they think, oh, I need to be gluten-free, which means it's tasteless, it's expensive, it's void of nutrition. Ugh. And you get tired of it. But if you'll soak and dehydrate your grains, and if you just have those sensitivities, more than likely you'll be able to eat real food, and you will be so happy and so nourished, and your family will just be thrilled. It's really kind of a family thing. You can get your kids involved in doing this, and they love it. They love cooking with whole grains. They love milling. Anyway, it can be a family adventure. So I won't get on my soapbox too much longer.
Well, I think it's a lot of fun, all the things that you talk about. It's kind of interesting. Uh it's interesting that God knew what he was doing when he started all this, right? So I would have been kind of knee deep in this whole in a lot of getting a lot of information about raw milk because there's a lot of legislation that's kind of pushing back against raw milk, and so I'm trying to be educated so I can educate our customers because I see it as a
Good.
food freedom that we need to hold on to, for one,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
but we need to be aware of what's going on.
yeah.
But I learned the most fascinating fact about milk, and it's that, um, a lot of people, and it had a percentage, I'm sure it was, I mean, it was a scientific study. It's not even, it's like multiple scientific studies. It's not just scientific studies, it's known, it's fact.
Mhm.
Multiple millions of people who have always thought that they were lactose intolerant, if they just simply switch to whole fat milk products,
Oh, wow.
suddenly they can process their milk because you need the fat to
Yes.
process. Your body needs the fat that comes in the milk the way it's created,
Yep.
the fat that comes with the milk to process the sugars in the milk. They have to stay together. But what have we been doing all this time? We've been pulling, yep, separating them because there's a whole lot of money in milk fat. You've got ice cream, you've got butter, you've got all the big money
Whipping
dairy
cream,
products.
all that stuff. Yeah.
All, yep. And then they sell, skim milk as healthier, it's better for you, it's low fat, when it's really exactly the opposite.
Yeah.
And it's not even digestible. And I think it's I know, it's the same thing with grain. A
Yeah.
lot I had to go gluten-free for a long time. I have some thyroid issues, and we're still working on my health processes, but I know for a fact that grains are not hurting. That's why I was able to switch back. We do soak and sprout them.
Yay.
And yep, and it just makes it so much more digestible, and I just, well, not only are grain does it make it more digestible, it has improved my digestion, but I
Oh,
also
good.
know that I'm taking in the nutrients in it instead of just eliminating them without being able to absorb them, and that's the having food
Huge.
that's with nutrients that are bioavailable that your body can actually absorb makes it's a game changer. It changes
It
everything.
is. It is. It is. And it sounds like rocket science, but it really is such a simple process. It might take you an extra 15 or 20 minutes over a 24-hour period. You know, we waste that much time every day. It just doesn't take long at all to accomplish the soaking and dehydrating. I can show you my system. You can adapt it to your own, and it'll be so simple. You'll just go, oh, there's no reason not to. Once you invest in your equipment, you've got it for life, and you'll eat healthy for life. You won't
Yeah.
pass it on to your kids. You might pass it on to your grandkids or your great grandkids, but it's amazing, and it is simple and it's easy. I do not do difficult things. I only do easy things. I've got a little bit of bread here. This isn't a wonderful loaf, but um, usually my loaves are bigger than this, but this is bread that I made last Tuesday. And it was probably in the freezer for a couple of days. But look at how soft and squishy that is. If I had not soaked and dehydrated my grains and I squeezed it like this, it would just crumble. It would not hold together. And I am just so thrilled to have that. Plus, it tastes so much more delicious. And you just go, oh, I love this bread. I love this bread.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. It's really good stuff.
It is.
So let's just do a quick recap about your sale. I just want to
Okay.
so people need to go to Holy Living, WHOLY living.com, go to
Right,
the contact page and email you and
right.
say that they want to join your email list. That's the
Yes,
first thing. And
yes.
you don't send out, I just have to say, you don't send out near as many emails as we do. So if
Oh,
you get tired
you're
of emails, don't
trying.
worry. She's much less obnoxious than we are. So
Well, yes, it depends. I go through seasons, but you're right. I don't do that. And anyway, I try to do it once a month at least. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 times a month, but go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, no, they're super informative. Also on your website are some recipes, which is
Yeah.
fun too, because that's actually where I tend to start is, okay, well, what's something I can make? So I think it's fun to be able to look at the recipes and think about what are some things that you can make and then try it.
Yeah.
And then so they're going to do that. They're going to email you, and then your sale will start when?
I will email everybody, yeah, right now, the middle of September, to go ahead and start placing your orders. The website is all refreshed and ready for fall orders. and then have the orders to me by October 2nd. And then we'll contact you and let you know when it arrives, the first part of November. And on my website, you'll see some Excel spreadsheets. There's one for the local people, and that will give you the discount on the consumables. And I don't know if I said that before, but the 10% and the 7% is on the consumable part of your order, not the equipment part or the books, that kind of thing. And if you're outside of, like Girdwood to Willow, then you want to use a locals or a regional Excel sheet. And those are very easy to do. And they figure up the discount and everything for you. So,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
And I just want to say, Margaret has also agreed to record some classes for Alaska and Beyond Alaska Homestead Academy. So we're going to start recording those in September, and those will be going up, but we're going to start totally basic. Why do we do this? How do you sprout and dehydrate your grains? It's going to be super basic, but she's also going to be making some bread. We're going to make sticky rolls. I think we're going to make some meals that include
Yeah.
whole grains. We're going to
Cookies,
do all the good
cakes,
stuff.
all kinds of things. Yes.
We're going to do all the good stuff. So yeah, it'll be fun to have those classes available on the Academy too, because although attending a class in person is fun, sometimes I'm inspired at midnight and I can't come knocking on your door. So
Thank you.
it'll all right. Well, Margaret, it is a treasure having your store here in the Valley. And I see I'm on several whole grain groups on Facebook, and I see people that say, where do I get this? They have a hard time finding that. There's nothing local. They have to have stuff shipped in. And I think, man, and here we are with Margaret's Granary right in the Valley. So thank you for offering that to us. And I'm excited to learn more in the Academy.
All right. Yep, we're up on Lazy Mountain, Clark Wolverine Road. And I'm open on Tuesdays from 3 to 7 and Saturdays 10 to noon. If you happen to be up on the mountain and you just really need to stop by, give me a call. And if I'm here, I'm happy to stop and help you. So,
Okay. Awesome. Thank
all
you,
right.
Margaret.
It's a
Appreciate
blessing
it.
to talk to you, Tandy. Lord bless your time, your week, and it's been great. We'll look
You
forward to doing the classes online.
All right.
Recording
Sounds
classes.
good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty.